Welcome to episode number 30 of the Dugout Report. I am here with the NBC LA sports reporter Michael Duarte, recapping tonight's Dodgers game uh, and everything Dodgers and looking ahead to a big series in Philadelphia next week. And welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for having me on again. I appreciate that.
So I wanted to start off by saying the Dodgers are 2-0 going for the sweep tomorrow with a good solid confident look against Milwaukee. And what are your thoughts on how this series is going?
I mean, the Dodgers have to be thrilled with the fact that they took the first two games of the series against the Milwaukee Brewers, especially the way they had been playing as of late. They lost the series against the rival Arizona Diamondbacks, who came into that series limping below 500. They lost the series to the rival San Francisco Giants up at the Bay, who were also kind of hovering around 500. And so, yeah, for all intensive purposes, for the Dodgers to come in against a team that was hotter than the prodigal son recently, as the Brewers, the Grand Slam boys from Milwaukee, as they called them recently here, to be able to beat them and beat them at their own game with the long ball, and do it in from come behind fashion in the first game of the series. And beat some really good pitchers. I mean, Peralta's been playing great this year, and they really tagged him on Saturday's game. Now, we have to point out something, Alex. Will Smith, Dodgers catcher, just the fourth catcher in MLB history to homer 3 times in one game. And then he homered in 4 straight at bats because his first at bat against the Brewers in the first inning on Saturday, he homers again against Peralta. First person on the Dodgers since Adrian Gonzalez to homer in 4 consecutive at bats. If he doesn't do that, I don't know if the Dodgers beat the Brewers in these last 2 games. And so these two teams are playoff teams. Clearly, they're both very good teams. And we saw that. Rhys Hoskins, your old friend from Philadelphia, homered in both games. He might go for the hat trick tomorrow on Sunday, whenever this podcast airs for Sunday for those listening. So the Dodgers will go for the sweep. I think the Brewers are going to throw Dallas Keuchel out there. The Dodgers have seen him. They saw him in the 2017 World Series. And so I know that that should be it to their advantage, but I think the Dodgers are going to go bullpen game. I don't know who's going to start. Right now it's TBD. Could be a rookie, could be somebody else. So I'm not sure, but I know also as they kind of head into that Phillies series, because the Dodgers threw Tyler Glasnow out there on Friday and another good pitcher in James Paxton today, the Phillies are going to avoid, the Dodgers' number 1 starter in Glasnow, I think, in that series. So I think that's good for the Phillies.
Um, I I just wrote up some notes earlier, and I saw Miguel Vargas had a good night with a home run, as well as Otani added home run also. And what are your thoughts on heading into Sunday uh, and having a positive impact of the series?
Yeah, so like I said, if you can get a sweep, it's icing on the cake, but the Dodgers just want to win series. They did that here. They took 2 of 3. They held off the chance for the Brewers to pass them in the National League standings. Like, they could have fallen to 3rd. Now they're going to get a chance in that series against the Phillies, especially if the Phillies keep struggling if they can sweep or win that series. I believe they'd pass the Phillies in the standings. So that would be huge for them. Not that it really matters whether you end up 1 or 2 in the West, or maybe you don't want the bye. I don't know. But if you're just looking at best record in the National League, best record in baseball, if they beat the Brewers tomorrow, they have a great chance to come into Philadelphia and potentially leave Philadelphia and head into the All-Star break with the best record in the National League, maybe the best record in all of baseball. The Yankees have been struggling a little bit. They've fallen a bit. So, all the teams with the best record in the sport, everyone's looking up at the Phillies with 58 wins, but everyone's right there, 56, 55. They're not too far behind the Phillies. I think if we look at this series just exclusively, the Dodgers Brewers, which is what you mentioned, the Dodgers have some weaknesses that we all know about. Injuries are huge, but it happens to every team. You're looking at the Phillies, who might be without Bryce Harper, probably won't be without Kyle Schwarber for that showdown with the Dodgers. But
Oh,
you know,
actually, uh, he's going to be activated on Tuesday.
yeah, so he'll be ready for
Yeah.
that first game of the series. That's what they've been saying. So like I said, if it all stays on plan, no
Hmm.
setbacks, Schwarber will be ready. But they've been without Schwarber and Harper here for a while, and they've struggled a little bit. They've had some injuries to their pitching staff. The Dodgers have just been kind of decimated by injuries, but they're always so deep each and every year that you can lose Mookie Betts, an
Hmm.
MVP frontrunner. You can lose a Cy Young candidate like in Yamamoto. You lose a 35, 40 home run guy in Max Muncy, and you just don't skip a beat. You keep going. But to that point, without those guys in the lineup, suddenly the Dodgers aren't as deep in the back end of their lineup as they were. And the back end of the lineup's what's been haunting them all season. It's the 7, 8, 9 guys that have been struggling this year. It's the guys off the bench that the Dodgers use as platoons. I'm talking Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, guys like that have been struggling. So if Miguel Vargas can come up, he's now homered in back-to-back games. His first pinch hit home run of his career was tonight in that one that ended up being the game winner against the Brewers
Hmm.
that you mentioned in that 5-3 victory. If he can give them anything at the back end of that lineup, James Outman's another guy who just got called up with Jason Hayward on the IL now with an injury. So he's going to be with the team probably at least 10, 15 days. If James Outman, who struggled earlier in the season and was demoted to AAA, if he can give him anything at the back end, like Andy Pajes did earlier, um, then that's great for the Dodgers because that's been the part of the lineup that you can pitch around if you're an opposing pitcher. You know, avoid Ohtani, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, and then get guys like James Outman, Gavin Lux, Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, guys that have been struggling. And if you can get to those guys, you can probably get those guys out. So if Miguel Vargas can give them anything, if Gavin Lux can try to get hot, I know Chris Taylor's been hitting better as of late. Those guys, in my opinion, against the Phillies are going to be key in this series because the Phillies lineup, especially with Trey Turner back and healthy, is just extremely, extremely deep and deeper 1 through 9, in my opinion, than the Dodgers lineup. Even with Bryce Harper out of it. And if you put Schwarber back in it, I know that guy's a Dodger killer as well. So we'll see. But it seems like the Dodgers might get lucky and they might, I don't know. I really want to find out because it seems like the Dodgers might avoid Aaron Nola
Hmm.
and the Phillies might avoid Tyler Glasnow. Looks like the Dodgers might also avoid Ranger Suarez because I know he pitched in that loss on Saturday to the Braves. So it's not going to be the best pitching matchups that we could possibly see in this series. You know what I mean? That you could see
Yeah.
if this was a potential playoff matchup, a 7-game series, like let's just say the National League Championship Series, Dodgers Phillies. You're going to see Glasnow, Yamamoto. You're going to see Bobby Miller. You're going to see Walker Bueller, Clayton Kershaw. None of those guys, except for maybe Glasnow, or maybe Bobby Miller, I think you'll see in this series. You're going to see in this series against the Phillies. And if it's the Phillies, you're going to line up Aaron Nola. You're going to line up Ranger Suarez. You're going to line up Zach Wheeler. This is how you're going to attack them. And we'll see how the pitching lines up for this series. And that goes to show because I know earlier in the year, before the Phillies got red hot,
Hmm.
the Dodgers played the Braves. The Braves came to town, and I was getting phone calls from Atlanta radio shows wanting to know, is this going to be the National League Championship Series preview? And although you can never tell because it all depends on matchups once you get to the postseason and who's hot going in, you could say on paper it's a potential playoff matchup, just as Phillies Dodgers now is a potential playoff matchup. And they all want to know, like, whoever wins the series, is that going to be who wins in the playoffs? And it's like, no, because in the regular season with a 6-man rotation like the Dodgers pull out, you never know who's going to take the mound when the Braves come to town. They're not lining up game 1 starter, game 2 like it's a postseason
Hmm.
series, you know, and you're going to give guys rest throughout the year in your lineup. And other guys are going to start that might not be starting in the playoffs. And your guys are going to have guys hurt like Mookie Betts and stuff that's not there. So even though everyone in baseball is excited to see Dodgers, Phillies starting next
Hmm.
week, I don't think it's going to tell us anything about what would happen if they met in October.
Hmm. Uh, what do you think about the Dodgers' current stake of the standings, and how do you think it'll affect them after the All-Star break?
That's a great question. I think the Dodgers and the Phillies alike, both teams, honestly, Alex, are entering this series against each other, and also the All-Star break, which will be coming up at the end of next week, at the perfect time, and at the perfect place in the standings. Like, you look at the Phillies, obviously they have the best record in baseball. They've had the best record in baseball for most of the year, but they're coming in here. They lost 2 of 3, but they're kind of in cruise control, if I can say that. You know, they're hanging on till Bryce Harper and Schwarber gets back. They're winning at above a 500 clip. And when you have a 9-game lead in the division over the Braves, who are also decimated by injuries, obviously losing reigning MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. for the season, then I think you're able to hold them off and kind of be in cruise control. The Dodgers, on the other hand, also decimated by injuries, and that's not great for them. And they've been churning the wheels a little bit. You know, like I just mentioned, they lost the series to the Diamondbacks. They lost the series to the Giants, who are in their division. They actually haven't been that great in their division. If you didn't count these 2 victories over the Brewers to start this 3-game series over the 4th of July weekend here at Chavez Ravine in Los Angeles, I think they were like 18-18 over their last 30 games before that. So they were just kind of middling, you know what I mean? But they have a
Hmm.
7-game lead in the division, which is, you know, a pretty good lead at this point in the year heading into the break. So the break should give them some time to reset. I'm hearing Max Muncy is expected to come back after the break. Walker Buehler is expected to come back from the IL after the break. Mookie Betts will probably need some more time, but you know, that extra time should get him closer to end of July, early August. Clayton Kershaw might be able to come back end of July as well. And so reinforcements are on the way. Reinforcements will be on the way for the Phillies as well. And when you have a big lead in that division, you have the luxury of giving these guys time to rest and heal, not have to rush back. Like, that's a great example is Max Muncy. You know, an oblique injury is a tricky injury. I think if the Dodgers needed him desperately, if this was September, not June, maybe he'd try to rush back a little early, but they don't really need him now. They need him October. Walker Buehler, a guy who, for all intensive purposes, Alex, is healthy. He's fine, coming off 2 Tommy John surgeries, but he's been struggling since he came back. Signs of rust. He'd have a good start and a bad start. A couple bad starts in a row. They were like, look, we don't need you in June against the Colorado Rockies, who might be one of the worst teams in baseball. We need you in October to be the Walker Buehler that you were in 2018, 2019, 2020. That's the, and 2021 too. That's the Walker Buehler we need. So take some rest, take 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off before the All-Star break, come back for the stretch run, ready to go. Teams like the Dodgers and Phillies, where they're at in the division with big leads, it gives them the luxuries to be able to do things like that.
What's the timetable for Jason Hayward to be back?
Yeah, so the good news on Jason Hayward is, and for fans who didn't see on the 4th of July game, he ran into the that was on Thursday. He ran into the fence, wasn't able to save a home run out of it, banged his knee up. He said he felt it on the outside of the knee, which had people maybe concerned it could be a kneecap issue. They did X-rays as well as an MRI, all negative. Everything turned out to be good. Not negative as in bad news, negative as far as no breaks, no fractures. Looks like just a bruise, a contusion. They did move him on the IL to bring James Outman up. James Outman was a starting center fielder for this Dodgers team on opening day, but he was hitting below 100 for most of the season, so he got sent down to try to figure it out. He's been hitting well in AAA. The Dodgers will give him a little bit of a runway here with Jason Hayward out to see if he can find the swing. And if not, I expect Jason Hayward to come back after the All-Star break once he's good to go, considering it wasn't a very serious injury.
It should definitely be a very hectic second half of the season, and I'm looking forward to having plenty of more coverage on my podcast with you, Michael, and hope that it'll be a fun time.
Yeah, I agree. One thing to look at, Alex, just for your readers and stuff, I always like to look at run differential in the
Hmm.
standings is a great way to look at just how good of a team is. You know, there could be teams that very, very low run differential overall, but a good record, but that means they're barely winning games, right?
Hmm.
If you look at the teams with the two best run, like I'll give you an example. The Seattle Mariners have a run differential of +6. They're in first place, but
Hmm.
they're barely beating teams. You know what I mean? They're kind of
Yeah.
sneaking by, and that's not where you want to be. You're a dominant team if you have a really good run differential. And this time of year, anything over 80 is probably a good run differential. But there are few teams who have an over 100 run differential, and I can name them in the entire Major League Baseball. Phillies are number one. Orioles are number two. Dodgers are number three. The only three teams with over 100 run differential. That means these teams are winning, and they're winning big sometimes, blowing teams out. They're very strong. They're very consistent. I like looking at run differential just to see how good teams are. And those three teams we just mentioned, and obviously you know the Orioles well because I think they beat the Phillies in a 3-game series a few weeks ago. Those are some really, really good teams right now in Major League Baseball, the teams that you don't want to mess with. And it's going to be exciting to watch those three teams in the second half. And my question for you before we leave, Alex, the Phillies have beaten the Braves in the first round in the NLDS by being a wild card team the last 2 years. Made it to the World Series 2 years ago. Probably
Hmm.
should have made it to the World Series last year, but you know, kind of choked against the Diamondbacks. Let them come back and steal that series in 7. If they stay where they're at, which is what we think that they're going to win
Hmm.
the East.
Yeah.
Let's say they stay at best record in baseball or best record in the National League. Knowing what we know about this new format, they're going to have 5, maybe 6 days off
Hmm.
before they play a wild card team that's been playing every day, doesn't have rust, and you know might have finished way below them the division. But would you rather that go straight to the NLDS, but have those 5, 6 days off, or do you want them to keep playing like they have as the wild card team the past couple of years and get hot at that time like they've done in October the last 2 seasons?
Uh, I think, in my opinion, I think they should uh somehow get to a wild card spot. I think that like having days off is not the best for them because it's just the way it is with them, and sometimes they won't get hot at the right time, and it's crucial for them to keep playing as much as possible. And I think that the one they had last year is something that they will look uh, and hopefully make make it happen again to continue what they have been doing.
I tend to agree with you. And just so you know, all the Dodgers players I've spoken to these last 2 seasons where they have been the number one overall seed or a top seed, um, and waited for teams, they said that the rust affected them, and they would
Hmm.
rather not be in that situation waiting for another team to come in who's been playing and is already hot. And that's now happened the last 2 years. Those bats that were one of the best offenses in the majors just go cold in October when they have 5, 6 days off, not facing major league pitching and playing every day. And those players have told me the same thing. So I tend to agree with you. But right now, it looks like the Dodgers and Phillies would be the two teams to have those days off. And except for the Houston Astros, no team has been able to do that, come from that position
Hmm.
and go all the way to the World Series and win it. So it's interesting.
My last question is, if they were to get the a wild card spot, uh, what would they have to do in order to reach it?
I think I don't think look, any we could see anything crazy happen, but I don't think without Ronald Acuna and Max Fried and Spencer Strider, I don't think the Braves are going to catch him. So I think losing the East to the Braves and being a wild card in the East is going to happen. So I think if you're the Phillies, you would maybe hope that, you still win the East, but maybe the Dodgers and the Brewers at this point catch you in the
Hmm.
standings and you finish third. So you don't have to wait those five,
Hmm.
6 days off. You get to play in one of those for early series based on the way the format is right now. Um, and you also are the home team in those series. Not that it really matters as much. The Phillies have proven that, but I think that would be the best case for them, is to finish like a 3 seed and not have to wait any time and go straight into a series and host them and be able to line up Aaron Nola against whoever they face. And I think that would be best for them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's been great talking to you and catching up, and uh, I'll definitely have you on sometime after All-Star break.
Sounds good.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.